take a cover from the We'll go to a rate, we'll go to a rate. We'll go to a bed, we'll go to a bed. As they come up,
Yo, it's your boy Shisu coming to you with What If Luffy Had Two Devil Fruits Part 3. Bet you weren't expecting this. Yeah, you guys, as you know, it's almost been a year since I posted anything even remotely related to this series. But after 11 long months, it's back in full throttle. Check out Part 1, Part 2, and Part 0 if you don't remember anything about the story. I'll put them down in the comments below for you guys. Now, without further ado, let's get started. We see the crew sailing as Usopp is practicing his sniping skills, blasting at small mountains at sea, hitting his mark every time. We see Luffy sparring with Zoro on the ship as Zoro swings all three of his blades down at Luffy. Luffy dodges, blitzing behind him using a talon kick, sending Zoro flying before he could even turn around. Zoro recovers, flipping midair, doing a flying sword attack. Luffy then kicks it, dispersing it. Nami will be watching this whole thing unfold in deep thought. Should I tell him? He's definitely strong enough to beat Arlong, right? So what's stopping me? Nami then gets a quick flash of memories thinking about when Arlong first invaded as she looks down. Luffy may have been fighting Zoro, but this didn't go unnoticed by him. Usopp, who was on the deck from shooting at mountains for target practice, would say, "Hey, you're gonna want to see this, Captain." Luffy then comes out on deck as he looks at a restaurant on the sea. Interesting. We could probably find a cook and some good booze. Zoro then regains all energy he seemingly lost when he heard booze, growing a large smile on his face. They then all dock the ship as Luffy tells Usopp to drop the anchor as he does. They all then hop off and shortly after walk into the restaurant, clearly getting glares and looks of unwantedness. And one of the head chefs there would ask, how would they be paying? Luffy then says, with cash of course. The man then smiles and everybody's guard lowers as the Straw Hat take their seats at the table, waiting on their food. As they wait and talk, they hear something that catches their attention. Luffy looks over to see Sanji grabbing a man by his face. "Don't you ever disrespect this great food again," he says, kicking the man in the face, sending him out the door. Luffy smirks, and the entire crew already knew what Luffy was thinking. He wanted that cook on board. Sanji then brings the Straw Hats their food shortly after that incident, and then they all chow down, with Luffy and Zoro drinking together. Usopp eats as well as Nami, and then Sanji goes to the dock and he lights his cigarette. He then sees Luffy. "Yo," Luffy said, what are you doing here?" "Just to chat and to ask you a question." "Okay, shoot," Sanji would say. "You seem like a good person. I wondered if you joined my crew. We need a cook." Sanji then takes a puff of his cigarette. "Forget it." "And what's exactly your reasoning?" Luffy asked, questioningly. "I wouldn't mind going, but I have ambitions of my own. I want to stay here and become the head chef. Besides," Sanji said after taking another puff, "I can't leave here. I still owe debt to someone here." Luffy then says, "That's kind of bad because I've already decided you'll be a part of my crew, so you kind of have no choice." "Who the hell said you could decide that?" Sanji said, demonstrating in a comedic fashion. Luffy says, "I won't leave it till you agree to join me." "Try as you might, I'm not going." "We'll see," Luffy says, and he then goes back into the restaurant, just in time to see the situation. A man on his knees begging for food. Luffy observes the cooks and they are hesitant to give this man any food. What's the issue here exactly? "Well, he wants food, but he works for Don Krieg," a cook would say, "and he doesn't have any money." "That doesn't matter," Sanji would say, walking toward the man with the huge plate of food. As if he's hungry, we serve him. We always satisfy the customer. I refuse to let a man go hungry," he says, placing the plate on the floor in front of the man, named Gin. Gin would then eat the food Sanji had given him, teary-eyed as he finished the entire plate. He thanked the chef, bowing, and he said, "Since you helped me, I'll give you a warning. My captain will be coming here soon, attempting to take over. Please get out of here, for your sake. I appreciate your hospitality." Sanji then takes a puff of his cigarette. "But we ain't going nowhere." King then says, "I warned you," and leaves. Zeph then says, "Damn it, now we have to deal with that little punk Don Krieg." The chefs around them then get intimidated, and then they then hear chuckling, looking toward where the sound is to see Luffy laughing at them, actually fearing Don Krieg. Don Krieg. I tell you what, old man, I'll get rid of Don Krieg for you, and Sanji's debt to you cleared. Debt? Sanji then looks off. Zeph would then say, "Sanji, you fool. you've never owed me anything. Not a damn thing. I saved you because I wanted to. It was my choice, so stop carrying around this imaginary debt. Saji then takes these words to heart and starts to think on what Seth said. That being said, I'd like it if you were to get rid of Don Krieg. No problem, old timer. The crew would then wait for Don Krieg, and after he arrives with multiple battleships jumping down from his ship, Luffy looks at Usopp and he nods. Don Krieg will say, "At last I've stepped foot on Baratier, and now I'll conquer this place. So surrender it to me now, or die." Don Krieg couldn't finish his sentence before his eyes went white, and he heard a shot sound. Simultaneously, Usopp had shot him in the head on the spot, killing him, taking a bite of the piece of chicken he had ordered. Everyone is shocked, and every chef's eyes widen. Every cook's jaw had dropped to the ground, just out of pure shock. He just killed Don Krieg with one shot. Usopp, did you just use what I think you just used? Asked Luffy. Usopp nods. I figured it out earlier today during the training session. Zeph thinks if he's that powerful, just imagine the magnitude of their captain. The Krieg's pirates with rage, running from their ships, battle crying with weapons, about to get in and attack Baratier. Don't you think it's about time you step in, Captain? Nami would ask. Luffy then says, guess so. He finishes drinking the cup of booze, setting it down as he walks out, his hair casting a shadow over his eyes as he walks out the restaurant. They don't think one kid can stop us, do they? Hey, let's get him. Yeah. Luffy then looks up with the trail of red as it sends a wave of conquerors, everyone falling over, being knocked out. You can clean up the bodies, can't you guys? The chefs are too stunned to speak or to even give a simple nod. Luffy then senses someone with his observation. Zoro. Zoro stands getting on guard, asking, what is it? It's go time for you. Dracula Mihawk is coming. This further shocked the chefs and even Zoro as Zoro ties his bandana back. Okay, I'm ready. Mihawk then gets off his boat to see Don Krieg's corpse and the bodies of thousands of laid out pirates. Well, who could have done this? That'd be me. Mihawk instantly notices the hair color as he questions himself. Is this the boy red hair was speaking of? Listen up, Hawkeye. My first mate wants to challenge you. Oh? And what's the purpose? Zoro then unsheathes his blades, putting a sword in his mouth. Your title, he says, jumping at Mihawk, armament activated, jumping above Luffy, cutting at Mihawk with all three blades. Mihawk notices he has Haki and immediately pulls out the blade on his back, blocking with ease. Mihawk then slashes at Zoro as Zoro ducks under his blade, barely getting a cut on his cheek as the air slash from just that half-assed slash crash behind the Baratier as it blows up, shaking the entire Baratier. As Zoro sweats, jumping back. As he jumps back to gain some distance, Mihawk is already there. What's wrong? Mihawk asks, slashing down as Zoro barely blocks as they clash. Zoro easily losing the clash but manages to parry it to the side, jumping to behind Mihawk, sending flying blade attacks midair. Mihawk then blocks them, slashing 3 times as the blade attacks explode, and Mihawk then asks, boy, what is your name? Roanoa Zoro. I see. You have my respect, Roanoa. But here, I shall finish you, Mihawk says, appearing in front of Zoro, slashing him down with the huge blade, this time making his injury 10 times worse than in canon. Zoro, Luffy yells. Mihawk notices this, testing Luffy, going to fake slash Zoro again, but the blade lands and hits land as Zoro is to Mihawk's right, along with Luffy holding him. I see. You're pretty quick to move him out of the way of my slash. Luffy then makes a blade of ice and another blade of blue flames, dashing at Mihawk, slashing with both of his blades as Mihawk counter slashes and they clash. Mihawk goes to kick Luffy in the stomach, but Luffy lifts his foot, countering with the other kick with the blue flames on his feet to stop the impact, and then ice to force him off, blasting him back as it's almost an entire blizzard behind Luffy. From the blizzard, it almost freezes half the island. Mihawk sends multiple flying blade attacks, but Luffy uses observation, dodging, freezing all the blade attacks mid-air, flying by, then burning them with Phoenix as he blasts blue flames at Mihawk. Mihawk blocking, having to react quick as Luffy flies into him, kicking him, sending him into the sky. Luffy then goes to kick him again, flying into the sky as Mihawk blocks all his kicks with his blade, having to move quick, and Mihawk goes to slash Luffy, but Luffy He ices his hand using armament hockey, blocking the blade with his bare hand. As he turns up the pressure on the coldness and ice blasting Mihawk back, as Mihawk lands, punching his feet, getting a bit serious, dashing toward Luffy, kicking back as Luffy falls on his behind. Mihawk appears before him with the blade about to slash him. However, Zoro wakes up seeing this, yelling, "Stop!" Just then, his conquerors activated, sending a wave, and it piqued Mihawk's interest enough to stop his attack. He puts his sword on his back, and Luffy stands. Zoro checks his scar. Am I healed? I managed to stop the bleeding. I would have closed the wound, but you needed to be cleaned first, Luffy would say. Zoro then nods as he slowly breaks out into tears, getting flashbacks of Kuina. He then holds his blade up. Now I make this vow here. I'll never lose again. Ever. Is that fine? King of the pirates? Zoro would yell. And Luffy would smile. Mihawk is interested by this crew, and he begins to walk away. Roronoa, you have potential. When you're strong enough, come back and seek me. We'll have a battle to decide who's truly the world's greatest swordsman. Straw Hat, you're a very powerful newbie. Knock the world government off their feet. Right, Luffy says. Mihawk then gets in his boat and sails away. Sanji, pretty interested in the extent of Luffy's power, then starts thinking of what Zeph said as he then lights his cigarette before making a decision. Hey Luffy, would it be alright if I joined your crew? Luffy then turns and smiles, and that's the end of Baratier arc. But make no mistake, this is not the end of the What If. We carry on to Arlong Park. We fade in to see Sanji and Zoro rushing Luffy as Zoro slashes. Luffy dodges, appearing behind him with the kick to his face, sending him. Sanji comes above with the axe kick, but Luffy disappears, reappearing in the sky, sending a beam of blue flames at Sanji. With no time to dodge, Sanji attempts to redirect it, kicking the beam as his leg and the beam clash. Sanji begins to get pushed back, sliding back as Luffy thinks, "You can do it, Sanji." Sanji tries his hardest to send the beam away, but it's burning his leg and even the bottom part of his pants burned off. He then thinks deep about what Zeph said to him before leaving the Baratier. Flashback. Sanji is grabbing his belongings from the Baratier. So you're finally leaving now. Sanji looks down, not wanting to look Zeph in the eye, afraid he'd cry, and he would say, "Yeah. Hey kid, make sure you find the all blue." Sanji then looks up and his eyes water and he nods. End of flashback. Sanji then says, "I can't falter here." His leg then blackens as he pushes past his limits, forcing through with all his might, sending the beam into the sky off the ship as it exploded in the distance behind him. Luffy then smiles. "I see. You finally got your armament, Sanji." Sanji then looks at his leg. I guess so." He smiles. "Hey Luffy, I think I just found my second win," he'd say. After the spars, Luffy goes into the fridge, grabbing some food, and then goes into his room. After taking a bite of the chocolate bar he got from the fridge, among other things, he hears a knock at the door. "Come in." Nami then opens the door and closes it behind her. "Nami?" "What is it?" Luffy asks, tilting his head. "Well, it's some things I have to tell you, and something I have to ask you," Nami would say. "Go on." Nami would go on to tell Luffy about all her past with Arlong and what he did and what he's been making her do. After the stories, Luffy's conqueror's haki would rise unintentionally, forming cracks in the side of the ship along with the floor, and is destroying things in his room. Luffy, after a while of raging, then composed himself as his conqueror's haki settled. Are you okay?" Nami asked, frightened at the sheer willpower of Luffy. "Yeah, sorry about that. Now, what do you need to ask?" "I was gonna ask, could I have the money to buy my village?" Luffy, at the back of his mind, thinks Nami is naive for believing Arlong, but if she wanted to try it, he'll do it. Even if lesson learned the hard way, lesson learned. She thanks Luffy and gives him a hug, and then they set course to Arlong Park, and eventually they arrive with all the crew arriving with the serious look. "Drop the anchor," Luffy says, not turning his head from the position but shifting his eyes toward Usopp, and Usopp then does so. Nami then takes the bags of money Luffy had gave her and started walking to Arlong Park. On her way, she sees a child standing at the gate spouting pure ignorance. After Nami tells him that he needs to run along, he tried to attack her, and then Nami then dealt with him. Nami then walks through as all attention goes to her as she walks. Oh, Nami, to what do I owe the pleasure? Arlong would say. Nami doesn't even take time to look at the other fishmen who were looking at her or Arlong as she looked down, dropping the bags of treasure as she then looked up. This should be enough to buy my village back, so you should be on your way out now. Oh, is that so? Arlong then laughs. Well, that would be the case if I weren't a pirate. Nami's eyes would widen. You think I'd ever let a source like you go? Come on, Nami. I thought you were smarter than that. I'll have you work for me to the end of time, till you perish, until I perish. I'll never let you escape. Arlong then laughs. Nami then runs off through the village as she cries, and she sits as she stabs the Arlong symbol over and over and over and over again, as eventually her hand gets caught and she turns to see Luffy holding her hand, preventing her from injuring herself any further. As she then sees her wound would dissipate in a trail of blue flames, and she then begs Luffy, please help me. Luffy puts a straw hat on her and walks off a bit before saying, of course. As he begins to walk off again, let's go. Usopp, Zoro, and Sanji, who were in front of Luffy, would say, right. They all then walk down to Arlong Park together, and Luffy punches down the doors. Where the hell is Arlong? Well, you must be Straw Hat. Before Arlong could even finish his sentence, he felt a fist to his face as he starts freezing, getting sent into a wall, along with the throne he was on being covered in ice as Arlong gets up, bleeding, dizzy from the first punch as the force caused an explosion behind him. Luffy then punches the now ice throne, shattering it. How dare you make my navigator cry? At this point, all of Arlong's commanders had rushed to Luffy, but Luffy continues to walk as Sanji, Usopp, and Zoro block the attacks easily. Arlong stands still being dizzy as he stumbles to his feet as Luffy walks up to him and kicks him in the face with blue flame, sending him into a wall. Arlong gets up trying to run at Luffy as Luffy dodges all his attacks, punching him in the gut as he coughs up blood, and then Luffy kicks him as he gets sent into a pool. Arlong spends a while regaining his consciousness as he then uses his shark technique. Outside of Arlong Park, Nami arrives with a bunch of people from the village being prepared to battle Arlong. Arlong pops out the pool, diving at Luffy head first like a shark, attempting to stab him with his nose. Luffy jumps in the air as he comes down with the flaming foot, stopping Arlong in his face as he slams into the pavement in a dusk of blue flames. Not quite. Try again, Luffy says, kicking Arlong back into the water. And Nami is shocked watching Luffy dominate the battle with ease. With Sanji and Karubi tries all he can do on Sanji. He punches and kicks Sanji at his fastest pace, but Sanji is easily keeping up and outdoing him, dodging effortlessly. Sanji then kicks Karubi 3 times in his chest and in both of his sides, as his feet are embedded in those 3 areas. Sanji then spin kicks Karubi, sending him flying and tumbling. Karubi comes from the air trying to punch down on Sanji, but Sanji sidesteps, raising his leg, kicking Karubi in the back as his body lays down in the pavement, and Sanji steps on his head. You're pathetic. Hachi with 6 sword style tries slashing at Zoro rapidly, but even with Zoro's wound, Zoro can casually dodge Hachi, and it's not even close. Zoro then slashes Hachi on all 6 of his arms as he bleeds. Zoro then hits Hachi with the hilt of his blade, sending him flying, but appearing behind him. Sorry, pal. I gotta end this quick. My injury is kinda irritating me. 1 sword style. 1,000 divine cuts, he says, using a move that he infused with Haki as multiple blade attacks cut Hachi up. After a standstill, Hachi's body drops unconscious from losing too much blood. Nami then looks up to see Usopp. The fisherman tries to grab him, but he jumps over him to behind him, shooting his arm, shooting right through it. The fisherman then grunts in pain, but then attempts to kick Usopp. Usopp then shoots him in the leg before he could raise his foot, and then walks past him, slowly spinning his gun around on his fingers, putting it away as the fisherman, before he knew it, was shot in the head. Arlong dives out of the water, this time actually successfully hitting Luffy as Luffy shatters. Everyone there is shocked and Nami screams Luffy's name. Not gonna be the first time if you know what I mean. Arlong then slowly cackles. I won. I knew he couldn't win. He's just a puny human. However, everyone's jaws would drop when they slowly see Luffy reform, grabbing Arlong, freezing him whole. Tch, don't laugh, it's disgusting, Luffy says, punching Arlong, shattering him with haki. The force from the punch being so strong, it knocks down some of the maps and things from the rooms. Luffy then figures Nami's room must be up there then. This place is the route of Nami's suffering. So, he then charges up an attack of cold chill, just going all around Arlong Park as Luffy bodies turn to ice and everything around slowly freezes. Everyone, get out of here. This whole place is going down. Everyone then runs for it as Luffy channels all the ice he built up to his left side and his right side channels up some Phoenix energy. Everyone is out when Luffy freezes Arlong Park whole and then within the same instance releases his blue flames, purging it all, erasing it from off the island. Everyone thinking Luffy was hurt in the midst of his own attack, the people of the island get sad and looking down as Nami cried. However, out came Luffy walking through. Hey, what a long face, he said, as everyone is hyped, throwing their arms in the air cheering, and Nami hugs him. Yo, Captain, looks like you could use a drink, Zoro would say. Luffy smiles. Hell yeah. We zoom in to see Zoro and Luffy cheering, bumping cups of booze as they drink it. It's an entire party going around. Usopp giving a speech on the plaid, drunk off his ass. Sanji surrounded by women simping out of his mind, while Nami is elsewhere. We see Nami in a tattoo artist shop as she hands him a note with the tattoo she wanted. And after all the partying and the village thanking the Straw Hats, Luffy claims this island as his territory, so nobody comes and messes with it, putting it under the protection of the Straw Hat Pirates. We fade in to see the crew waiting on the ship as the people of the island see them off saying goodbye. As they do, Nami comes running through the entirety of the crowd yelling, "Start sailing." They do so and Luffy smirks instantly, knowing exactly what she's doing. Nami, after finishing running through the crowd, jumps and lands on the ship as she slightly lifts her shirt and wallets drop. She holds some money up, smiling, saying, "Thanks for the money. This is a fee for saving you all." Luffy then chuckles, and Nami then turns around and laughs, and she kisses Luffy on his cheek. And now, that's why I'll be ending it off. Hope you guys like, comment, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.